Good morning everyone, and welcome back to Craft Eccentricity and something a little bit controversial today. Yeah, is art glitter really worth it? Is this glue really worth it? This bottle for me is I think $16 or $17. Got it on Amazon, and it can be more expensive elsewhere. When paired up with a smaller bottle, which is what a lot of people prefer to go for, because it will come with a pin and it will come with a metal nozzle, these combined can be almost $30. Now something like this, admittedly it will last me maybe 8 or 9 months, but on this particular bottle, because the pin kept breaking and because the hole of the nozzle is so small, you know, you're constantly stabbing yourself with the pin and missing, I actually got one of these medicine bottle stoppers to put on here, which doesn't always work, I have to say, and I usually end up using a pin to poke out this particular hole. So what I did was, I thought, after reading reviews on Amazon, and really I shouldn't have gone to Amazon, well I should, but I shouldn't, and I'm going to explain that in a minute, is that the feedback from people was no different on this than compared to this. Now the reason I bought this on Amazon, and I think it was $6.14, and I have linked this below, and the reason I've linked it is because this bottle shape has been stupidly discontinued by Eileen's. Why on earth they would do that, I don't know. But anyway, skipping forward as to saying why it was a mistake, and it wasn't a mistake. Number one, you can only get this bottle shape on Amazon, and I don't know how many of these they've got left, but I figured as long as I get the bottle, which looks like this, pull that off, which is exactly the same as my art glitter nozzle, the hole at the top, we're not looking at the thickness of the nozzle, just the hole at the top, it's exactly the same. And obviously, you know, in that it's constantly upside down and it's at the nozzle and it's ready to go, so you're never going to suffer with any air clogging or spitting and all the rest of it. But anyway, getting back to my mistake and not mistake, this is $6.14 for 4 fluid ounces, but as I said, it was the shape of the bottle that I wanted. But if you go on to eileens.com and look at their sale at the moment, you will get 3 bottles of quick dry tacky glue for, I think it's $7.99. So you're getting 12 ounces for just $1 more than I paid for this on Amazon. But as I said, I don't really care, because it's this bottle that I wanted, and I have ordered 3 from Eileen's, and I intend to refill this so that I can keep this nozzle. But is it better than art glitter glue, or is it the same? And that's what we're going to look at, because I'm going to tell you now, I think it's identical. So here goes. There's my Eileen's. There's my little bottle that I normally use, and I'm putting this one on my husband's workbench because he's always stealing it anyway for gluing stuff, but he uses large amounts of it, whereas of course when we're crafting we just want skinny little bits on our cards. So first of all, black cardstock. Glue showing up on black cardstock is a real pain, and I've actually discovered, I'm going to drop my camera down and see if I can get some better focus here. Let's have a look. I'm going to try my best. Let me pause, let me just open my other blind and see if that will change things. Right, I've tried that and hopefully it's a lot brighter. Anyway, black cardstock. Whenever we're using black cardstock, particularly at this time of the year, because, you know, it's Halloween and we tend to use a lot of black stuff. But I use a lot of black anyway for journaling. And it always leaves a residue when I use art glitter. It dries clear, but there's a certain cloudiness to it. So I'm going to use on black cardstock, and I will pause and come back when it's dry. So I'm just going to do a random squiggle, and I don't want to put it down too thickly, she says. So we'll do like little dots so that we can see, and I'm going to do a circle. So this is, you know, what it is, but I'm just doing this. Right, so we've done some squiggles and dots for the art glitter glue. And now I'm going to use Eileen's tacky. Now, as I say, this has got a fixed nozzle, but I'm pretty sure if I go in my little pot somewhere and find my metal nozzle, it's probably going to fit onto there. But I will have to find that and come back to you. Right, so go in with what comes out of the pour here. And then doing some dots. Now this is supposed to be the quick dry, and then I've got a circle, haven't I? Yeah, and then I've got 3 lines. So already I can see that there's less spread out, and it actually looks a bit thinner coming out of its own nozzle. Right, so I'm going to cap that off, and whereas this one has to stand up, this one is going nozzle down. Right, I'm going to pause. This is probably, I reckon, going to take about 10 minutes to dry. And let's look at them. But I have already done some acetate, and I couldn't even find it on my desk. Now, I did 2 pieces. Can you see that? I'm going to switch them around. And if I hover them over the black, you'll probably see it a bit better. Maybe not, but I am going to try and get as close as I can. Can you see that? There's no difference. There genuinely is no difference. Hang on, I'm going to go and fetch another piece of black cardstock. Right, I've got some, so I'm just going to put that there, and then I'm going to get my 2 pieces. If you can spot the difference between those, you're a better person than I am. That's all I can say. And I have actually got my glasses on. There is absolutely zero difference between the way those 2 have dried on acetate. Now, obviously, you want something that's going to dry clear when you're doing shakers and stuff. And if I flip them over, see that? There is absolutely no difference. So on acetate, it dries exactly the same. Now these are starting to dry now. I was going to pause and go away, and we can see the speed of drying. Now obviously on the tacky glue right there, that's quite a thick bead, and that would take a long time. But if you look at the circle, that little bit there, you can see it's starting to dry already. And if we look at the glitter glue, maybe that is drying a little bit faster. And then we've got our little dots and stuff. So we are going to do some more with this glue, but I'm just pausing while this dries, and I'll let you know how long it takes. So I am going to time it, and I'm going to come back in exactly 10 minutes. Okay, so it has been 10 minutes, and if you look at these, you can see that the tacky glue has still got a longer way to go than the art glitter glue. But, and there is a but to that, if you look at the art glitter glue, you can see the reason that it's drying faster is because it's spread out. From its original form, it has actually leveled itself out and kind of made the design a little bit wider, if you will. So it's thinned itself in the thickness of its design, which means it would dry faster. So you can have a good look at that after 10 minutes. You can see those drippy bits. There's only a tiny little fraction there left to dry, but they have spread out. Now if you compare that to Eileen's, you can see this has still held its shape. So if you kind of like tilt it, you can see that the dimension of the drops is still there, but it is drying. So it's held the fine shape that it had when I put it down. You can see the bits where it's drying there. But compare that to the art glitter that spread itself out. So at the moment, I'm not convinced that an extra $10 is worth it for art glitter glue. I did put some down on white because I wanted to see what it would look like. And once again, you can see the art glitter glue has leveled itself out in order to dry, whereas the tacky glue has still held its shape, which means it's thicker and it's going to take longer to dry. Now, I do know that when you put it on the acetate and squish it, it does dry at exactly the same time. So one of the reasons I switched, I used to use Dollar Tree glue and I was really happy using Jot glue, and then my humidity, and it's really bad today, got so bad that when I was making dimensional things, I couldn't move on to the next thing because it was still wet. So I've scored a piece of white cardstock here, and then I've got these, and I just want to bond them off the edges, leave it for a couple of minutes and see if they, you know, just lift off, or if you could move on to the next stage of a project. So while these are drying, I'm just going to move these out of the way. And I have to tell you that one of the reasons I'm doing this is because a lot of us are finding crafting very expensive, and if there's a way we can save money, especially if you've got humidity, then I think that's a good thing. So here's my piece of cardstock, and first of all I'm going to go down with a tacky glue, and I'm just going to put a bead along here. Now this is actually going to be squished flat now, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm just going to stick that there. Now, of course, because this is a glue that's more likely to hold its shape, it's going to have more open time on it, which will give you more time to move things about. And then I'm going to do this one. And it doesn't matter if it's straight or not, I'm just kind of like doing it as an example, especially up to a scored edge. Right, I'm going to come back in a couple of minutes and see if one's glued or if one just lifts off. Okay, so it has been approximately 3 minutes since I applied that glue, and now we're going to pick it up and see if it comes off. So first of all, you need to pick it up, don't you? And it's pretty much glued. Now that's holding fast. And that's holding fast. That's absolutely identical. So after 3 minutes, I've got that. Now, if I get my bone folder tool and just bend that on the seam and see what happens there. Now, I could totally work with that. And then if I do exactly the same here, I know that I can work with this because, of course, I've used art glitter glue. But it's like when you want to do something three-dimensional in a humid environment, it can be really difficult, you know, having to clamp stuff and walk away for 10 or 15 minutes. But those are, you know, for what I'm going to use them for, they're identical. So why should I spend, you know, all that extra money doing it? Now, I'm going to fold that back open, and now I'm going to tear it off, and it was attached. And now let's tear off the art glitter glue. That was attached. Actually, it wasn't as attached. It came off a lot easier. Whether that's because it's still damp into the fibres, I don't know. But they both work for me exactly the same. Now, if we pull in our black samples once again, and look at these, you can see the tacky glue still has a lot of drying to go, but when you consider that you're putting a sheet of paper on top of a sheet of paper, you're not necessarily putting it down like that. It doesn't matter, because once you've created a bond and flattened it out, it becomes exactly like the acetate. You know, it's just going to squish out and it's going to look and react exactly the same. So for me personally, and like I say, it is for me personally, and you can see there the art glitter glue again has leveled out. It's still a bit wet here to dry faster, whereas this one doesn't level out. But that's not the real test of why we're doing it, unless you were using it for something decorative. It would be quite literally sticking a piece of card, wouldn't it, you know, on top of a piece of card. So it would be all squished out and it would be flat. So for me personally, I am now switching to Aleene's quick dry tacky glue. Yeah, I hope that made sense to you, because it's going to save me $10 to $15 on a bottle of glue, and I'm really pleased about that. I thank you so much for joining me today. I do hope you have an absolutely awesome day, and as usual, all links below. Bye.